Audi is now adding a 5-door variant to its A1 range, the A1 SportbackFollowing. It's the same length as the 3-door model, but 6 millimeters taller. The A1 SportbackFollowing is designed to appeal to young urbanites looking for a thrifty car for everyday use. Sandra Gurus from Audi tells us about the customers the A1 SportbackFollowing aims to please: young people, upwardly mobile women, households with more than one car. Audi also hopes to attract young families with children, as a car with 2 rear doors suits their needs better than a 3-door model. The A1 comes with a choice of 2 different equipment packages: Attraction and Ambition. We tested the sporty Ambition variant with the strongest 136 kilowatt engine. On the outside, the Sportback looks very much like the 3-door A1. In front, the large single-frame grille and the large air intakes dominate. Audi produces the A1 Sportback with a choice of 6 different motors, with performance ranging from 64 to 136 kilowatts. The engines boast a new technology that reduces fuel consumption and is in line with the trend towards downsizing. Jörg Urs-Fuchs tells us that the A1 Sportback is the first Audi to use a COD, or cylinder on-demand engine. With it, the middle cylinders shut down when full power is not needed. The A1 is one of the most aerodynamic cars in its class. Customers can choose from many fresh interior and exterior colors, so the car fits their own individual style. Sandra Gurus has a few words on color. Unlike the 3-door variant, the A1 Sportback can be ordered 2-tone, with the roof arch, and the rear spoiler contrasting with the rest of the body. The headlights and taillights retain the existing A1 design. The rear doors make it easy to access the back seats. The trunk volume is unchanged. New is the infotainment system with Audi Connect and the concert radio included in the media package. Conceived for all Audi models, extras of this kind are usually reserved for luxury cars. Audi's Markus Haverkamp explains that the audio music interface online connects with the internet by means of a UMTS stick supplied by the customer. This provides access to a wide range of internet radio stations from around the world. In the top trim package, the A1 Sportback comes with bucket seats. The higher roof means more headroom in the back. 4 seats come as standard with the Sportback, but customers can order a 5th seat at no extra cost. The 1.4-liter TFSI engine produces 136 kilowatts of power. It can go from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 7.0 seconds and has a top speed of 227 kilometers an hour. With the basic equipment package, the Attraction, the Sportback comes with a sport steering wheel, automatic start-stop system, front and side airbags, and a CD radio. Another highlight is the dynamic suspension that can be switched to sport mode. A basic version A1 Sportback sells for just under 17,000 euros in Germany. The Electromobility, a specialized trade fair for electric mobility and alternative drive technologies, is being held in Cologne for the 4th time. Along with manufacturers of electric cars, suppliers and developers are presenting drive systems, technical components, and services like electrical charging infrastructures. Bosch, for example, not only offers complete packages, but also sees itself as a development partner. Electromobility attracts the interest of fleet and carpool managers at big companies, as well as representatives for public utilities and transport systems. Visitors to the show can also drive the carbon-neutral vehicles on a test track. The cost of owning and operating a vehicle has exploded in recent years. And statistically speaking, a car spends 23 hours a day parked somewhere. So it's little wonder that car sharing is growing in popularity. Now there's an internet platform called Ta My Car, where people can rent privately owned vehicles directly from their owners. Users enter their postal code to find vehicles in their neighborhood. 5 students from Aachen came up with the idea after noticing how many vehicles in their area were standing around unused. Michael Minnes says they thought it would be good to make use of the privately owned cars parked in people's neighborhoods, which could be rented cheaply and efficiently. The enticing thing about tamaicar.de is that it offers everyday vehicles at affordable prices. But if you take a closer look, you'll also find the odd rarity. Jörg says he's rented this sensational Mercedes for €42.50 a day. It's a /8 from 1971, just the thing for driving to classy car shows or chauffeuring wedding guests. Who could ask for more? More than 2,500 vehicles are currently registered with Ta My Car, and not just in the big German cities. We decided to ask owners whether they'd be willing to rent out their cars. Of course, she says, cars should be used by several people. I wouldn't have a problem with it, he says, though I might if I had a new car. This woman says cars are expensive, so she wouldn't rent out hers. He doesn't even lend his car to friends and would be afraid a stranger might not return it in one piece. Jörg has an appointment with Karsten Richards, who's renting out her Nissan Micra. After they've filled out the handover report, Jörg pays in cash. Karsten hands him the registration and the keys. The car is insured through Ta My Car for the rental period. Karsten says she's met some nice people this way, and they've all returned the car in great shape. The transaction is simple, and it's a nice way to earn a bit of extra cash. Jörg is also impressed, but warns, the waiting time for the owner to agree to the rental can be quite long. This could be improved. But he notes that the portal hasn't been around very long, so that's bound to get better. Happy trails. Dubai, the Persian Gulf metropolis built on oil wealth. Among its many spectacles is a unique motorsports event, the 7th Dubai 24-hour race. The Autodrome was originally built for Formula One. With its high-speed straightaways and technically demanding curves, the track is no small challenge to the drivers. The Mercedes SLS AMG GT3 took to the course for the first time last year and placed 3rd without further ado. This year, it aimed even higher. But the competition did too. The new Ferrari 458 GT3 was one of the favorites of this year's field. 2011's overall winner appeared this year in a new color scheme, Schubert Racing's BMW Z4 Coupe. The drivers had the domestic Saudi Falcons team behind them this time. At the wheel of car number 1 was the professional German race driver Jörg Müller.
Well, I won already a few 24-hour races, twice at Nürburgring. I finished 2nd in Le Mans, so I've got experience in long-distance races. But on that circuit, the biggest thing is really the traffic. There's more than 70 cars on the circuit, also a few very slow ones, so you really have to look that you get through traffic without losing a lot of time.
The racers got off to a flying start, with 2 Ferraris out in front and a Lamborghini swiftly coming up from behind. A mixed bag of vehicle classes, amateurs and pros ran against one another, making for an exciting contest on such a long stretch. Drivers can quickly get into tight spots in the thick of the race. The sun sets quickly at these latitudes, and the nights are long. It's a concentration marathon for the drivers. A Viper jostled one of the lead cars, a Ferrari with number 2, and broke its wheel suspension. The Ferrari managed to limp into the box under its own power. The Mercedes SLS that placed third last year fared better this time. Its butterfly doors let the drivers change in a flash. Everyone had to adjust to the hazards of night driving.
It's getting hard now because a lot of guys are not really knowing where they are going. So yeah, you have a lot of traffic and you really have to be careful. Yeah, I mean, generally it went well. We didn't have really problems on the car. You get a lot of pickup on the tires from all the rubber that all the cars lay down on the track. But other than that, it's going very well.
The traditional fireworks at midnight signaled the end of the first racing day, but not of the race, which continued without a pause. The Saudi Falcon's BMW, driven by Schubert, was a bit wider than their 2011 model and sported the steering column paddle shift familiar from Formula One.
It's really tight, I think, and try to push as hard as I can, but with the traffic you can't risk it. And yeah, then I just saw the number 3 SLS in front of me. It overtook me, and then I just stayed behind him just to maintain the position and try not to take any risks and hit anybody. You know, in the dark there's some weird driving going on.
As the sun began to light the sky again, the cars began to crash. The Tsunami Porsche was limping on just 3 wheels. Other racers also bore the scars of the night's driving. The drivers put everything they had left into the home stretch. It was an especially bitter defeat for this Lamborghini to drop out shortly before the end of the race.
And the third driver,
after 24 grueling hours of competition, the race was over. This time, all the winning spots were taken by Mercedes SLSs. The previous year's winner, the BMW Z4, came in fourth. The victors take more traditional modes of transportation to the podium. The race took everything the drivers had to give. That much the sweeter is a victory at the Dubai 24-hour race. The Alvis FWD was a milestone in automotive history. First built in 1928, it was the first series production car to feature front-wheel drive. To the tune of backfiring, we journey back in time to the early days of the automobile. Our test driver Christoph Bauer says that in the 1920s the automobile was still in its infancy. Engineers and manufacturers were experimenting like crazy, learning by doing. He says some of the results were hair-raising. For example, rocket-powered cars. In 1928, Fritz von Opel accelerated the RAK 2 to almost 230 kilometers an hour on Berlin's Aarhus Highway, which doubled as a racetrack. The RAK 2 used 24 solid-fuel rockets. In the same year, the street version of the front-wheel drive Alvis FWD debuted in England. Christoph says many people were as leery of front-wheel drive as they were of rocket cars, because front-wheel drive means the front wheels must do 3 things: steer, absorb shocks, and propel the car. Many people thought this was impossible. The first company to produce front-wheel drive cars in series was the Alvis, and that was this car, the Alvis Front. In 1926, the French company Tracta patented a system which made front-wheel drive vehicles somewhat easier to steer. The Alvis FWD has a 4-cylinder engine with capacity of 1.5 liters under the hood, and thanks to compression, it generates 75 horsepower. That helped it finish as the best car in its class at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1928. But Christoph says he can't imagine how anyone could drive this strenuous car for 24 hours. At the end of the 20s, Le Mans was owned by the Bentley boys. With their 4.5-liter engines, the British cars left their competition in the dust. But the Alvis won a clear victory in the under 1.5-liter class and 6th place overall. Back then, car racing was very hard work, as our test driver is learning firsthand. Driving the Alvis FWD demands absolute concentration, he says. The gas and brake pedals are switched around, and the gears aren't synchronized, so everything rattles and rumbles when shifting. Christoph takes a break in San Gimignano, in the heart of Tuscany. The Alvis clatters and rattles up the narrow alleys. The Alvis was conceived to be fast and maneuverable. Christoph can testify that it was fast due to its modern four-cylinder engine with the camshaft at the top, and it came with an optional compressor, as this model has. But maneuverability was another thing, as drivers in Le Mans discovered. So the engineers supplemented the leaf springs on the independent suspension with an individually adjustable friction shock absorber, and that improved its ability to hug the road. As was usual at the time, the experience gleaned during racing was applied to the series production model. From 1928 to 1931, the Alvis FWD sold in Britain for £625 sterling. Its front-wheel drive and independent suspension made it one of the world's most modern cars. The elaborate dashboard in the cockpit reveals the car's racing pedigree, as does the roar of the compressor. With its 75 horsepower, the strongest four-cylinder engine could rocket the Alvis to a top speed of 135 kilometers an hour. With the motor, differential, transmission, and steering all on the front axle, steering is a real challenge for Christoph. He jokes that after this drive, he can skip his next trip to the fitness studio. The driver operates the externally mounted brakes with his right arm. Christoph says turning the steering wheel too far can prove dangerous. The steering can get stuck, and then the car drives in circles, if nothing's in the way. Not something to try out. And even by the standards of the time, this was not a comfortable car. A jaunt with the Pioneer front-wheel drive can best be described as a loud and rough ride. Technically speaking, Christoph says the Alvis was far from mature. In the 20s, some experts thought that front-wheel drive would never be safe. That's probably why only 150 of these Alvises were ever built. That's how things are with Pioneers. Their brilliance is often only recognized many years later. The Alvis was the first series production car with front-wheel drive, making it a true milestone of automotive history.
Ist definitiv ein Meilenstein der Automobilgeschichte.
And so it has earned a spot in the Zeithaus Car Museum in the city of Wolfsburg. It's hard to imagine a more authentic driving experience. Christoph rejoices, in spite of the exertion.